Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. I'm Bunny and this is Not Quite Twins by Lunar Heartwood. Summary. Shinsou Hitoshi was placed in foster care at a young age. No one said why, but he knew it was because of his quirk. By the age of 10, he'd given up on having a loving family. He just wanted somewhere to safely live, and his latest family, the Midoriyas, seemed nice enough. His son, who could almost be his twin, was a little off though. Izuku was nice, too. Just, something's up with him. Chapter 1. At the age of 4, Izuku knew the world wasn't fair. His quirk never came in. He lost his best friend. At least he still had his parents, right? Dad was working overseas when he got diagnosed, but now that he was 6, Dad came back. He transferred back and was spending time with Izuku. He still loved him. Mom still loved him too, right? They'd been quiet lately, but he wasn't happy about it. The house shouldn't be quiet. Before Dad went overseas, the house was always loud. But maybe that was because Kachan was always over, and he wasn't anymore. But it should be fine anyway. Izuku perked up and left his room and ran. No, he didn't run. You shouldn't run inside. He speed walked over to the kitchen where Mom and Dad were both sitting at the table. But why? Dinner had been an hour ago. Izuku was working on his latest analysis, Present Mike. Present Mike was just so cool. Izuku walked over and sat down at the table, looking in between his mom and dad. "What's up?" "Well," Mom said as the two glanced between each other. "We were thinking, how do you feel about having a sibling?" "A sibling? A sibling? Maybe they'd be his friend, at least for a while, but he'd have a friend." "A sibling?" Izuku said excitedly. "Am I getting a sibling? Sakura-chan said she got a sibling recently when her mom spent a few days in the hospital. Mom, are you going to the hospital to get a sibling?" The two chuckled as Dad reached over and ruffled Izuku's hair. "Not exactly, Izuku," Dad said carefully. "But that's how you get a sibling," Izuku said, confused. "Yes, it's one way," Mom said gently, reaching over and squeezing Izuku's hand. "But that's through giving birth, which is something I can't do, okay?" "You can't?" Izuku asked, confused. Mom shook her head. "No." "Then I can't get a sibling?" "No, you said that's one way," Izuku said, looking at the table. "So there must be some other way to get a sibling. That would be so cool. I wonder what other ways there are. Can we guarantee that my sibling will like me? I'm quirkless, so it might only be for a little while. But I could have a friend for a little while at least, right? Even if it's just until my sibling gets to school and learns from the other kids that they should hate me." Dad gently tapped Izuku's cheek. "Oh," he'd been mumbling. Izuku hunched his shoulders. "Sorry." "Don't be sorry. We just can't always keep up with your thoughts. You can't always either," Dad said with a big smile. "As for the other way, there's something called foster care." "Foster care?" Izuku asked. "Mm-hmm," Mom said. "Not everyone has a mom and dad like you, so some kids don't have parents." "Everyone has parents, though," Izuku said. "Not every kid. Sometimes their parents leave them behind, either by dying or not wanting them." Mom said. "Not wanting? That's possible?" "Wait, I heard about that. I heard Tsubasa's mom say something about my parents not wanting me. Wait, are they going to leave me?" "Never," Dad said quickly. "No, we aren't leaving you, now or ever. That's not what this is about, Izuku." "Oh, I was mumbling again. I need to stop that habit." Dad quickly reached over and picked Izuku up, settling him in his lap. "That's not what we're saying, Izuku," Dad said gently, carefully ruffling his hair. "Foster care is when families like us take in kids without parents for a while and see if they should be part of our family. If they don't like you, though, well, they aren't a good fit for this family, and someone else can love them, okay?" "Oh," Izuku said. "Okay." Dad gave him a quick hug. "Mom and I are planning on doing this. We'll be setting up the spare room, and a nice person will come by to see if we have a good house." "We have the best house," Izuku said, and the two adults laughed. "Yep, we do," Mom said. "And once that's for sure, we'll have some kids stop by and live with us for a while. If we decide that we want them to stay forever, we adopt them." "Okay," Izuku said, then gasped. "Are they going to stay in the spare room?" "Yep," Dad said. "Then can I put some of my All Might things in there to make them feel better?" Izuku said, squirming a little and getting off Dad's lap. "Then they'll like me." With that, he ran into his room. Old All Might blanket. His old All Might blanket would be perfect for this. And he had some old figures in good condition that he could put in there. He'd make sure the room was perfect so his new sibling would feel welcome and be his friend. Hisashi smiled sadly as he watched his son run out of the room. Then he turned to Inko. "He's certainly excited, but," Hisashi said. Inko sighed. "I know, I wish I could fix everything, but we can't make the other kids like him. We can make home safe for him, though. Just, what if the kids that come through were mean to him?" "Then they can leave," Hisashi said, moving to give his wife a hug and a kiss on the cheek. "That's all there is to it." Inko sighed, gently touching her stomach. "Any foster kid will already have prejudice. We can't just expect all of them to be fine. If only I could have a kid that we could raise not to hate Izuku." "It's not your fault, Inko," Hisashi said. "We can just do our best. Have another kid, and we'll find the perfect one for our home." Izuku ran to his room, sobbing as he slammed the door shut, curling up against the door. The new foster kid, the first one, Hikaru Gojo, had seemed nice at first. In front of Mom and Dad, he didn't seem to want to be Izuku's best friend, but best friends took time. But then Dad had work, and Mom stepped out to get groceries. Izuku and Hikaru had homework. Immediately Hikaru turned to Izuku and told him that he hated him, and that would never change, that his quirk, Starshine, Mom and Dad would be fawning over that with his quirk Starshine, Mom and Dad would be fawning over him and get rid of Izuku instead, after all. With such a cool quirk compared to not having one, which child would a parent choose? That had been 3 days ago, and Hikaru kept this up. He tolerated Izuku in front of Mom and Dad, but when it was just the two of them, either walking to or from school, if they had even a second alone, it was a different story. Today Hikaru had turned to Izuku and used Starshine to hurt him. Starshine let him make little stars that glowed a little bit, and they were sharp. Hikaru did this when Mom stepped outside and to greet Dad coming back home from work, saying he'd say that Izuku cut himself or something, say that he was just seeking attention. Izuku ran to his room, Izuku sniffled, wiping at his eyes as he slowly got up, locked his door, and went to his computer, logging in and staring at the search bar for a minute. Usually he'd turn on his All Might video, but how long would Hikaru stay? When Izuku told Mom and Dad about this, would Hikaru stay for a few more days, hurt Izuku for telling? What if they didn't believe Izuku? Izuku looked up quirkless fighting. Even if Hikaru left right away, the next foster kid might not be as nice. And while Izuku wasn't bleeding much, even a little bit of blood, cuts, bruises weren't noticeable. Izuku had to have a way to defend himself. There was a knock at his door. "Izuku," Mom asked, "can I come in?" Izuku paused. He should let Mom come in, but he needed to learn to defend himself. "I'm coming in," Mom said, and Izuku quickly clicked on the favorite link of the All Might video as the door opened, and Mom came in. "Izuku, you're bleeding," Mom said, quickly rushing over and grabbing one of Izuku's arms. "What?" "Mom?" Izuku asked quietly. "Yes?" Mom asked. Can Hikaru leave?" Izuku asked quietly. Mom paused, then muttered a word he didn't know under her breath as she gently picked him up. "Of course, sweetie. I'll call a social worker right after I get your arms taken care of," Mom said, walking over to the bathroom, but walking through the living room. "Hey, Izuku, why are you bleeding?" Dad said, rushing over. Mom pointed a little device that they had added recently to the living room. "Why don't you check that? I'll be right back and call Miss Sakura, please." "Why is he hurt?" Hikaru asked, slightly pale as he glared at Izuku. "You just went to your room. How did you even—" "Stop talking," Mom said as she turned and walked out of the room and over to the bathroom. "Why is she mad at me?" Hikaru asked with tears in his eyes. "There's no need to call Miss Sakura because Izuku's bleeding, right?" Hisashi felt his heart sink as he grabbed the Echo Show and flipped to one of the apps. Inko was out of the house for 3 minutes, so Hisashi went still and turned to grab his phone, glaring at Hikaru as he showed him the recording of him using his quirk. Hikaru went even more pale. "Go pack your things. One of the first things we told you was that Izuku's our priority in foster placements, and you just hurt him," Hisashi hissed, dialing the social worker. "There was no reason to use your quirk, and we don't tolerate that here." Sakura Yamamoto here." The phone was answered immediately. "Good." Hisashi Midoriya here. Can you please come pick up Hikaru Gojo? He's not welcome here anymore. I don't care what it takes, but I don't even want him here tonight, Hisashi said. I see. May I ask why? Miss Sakura asked. Come on, it's a misunderstanding. Hikaru said, stepping forward. Hisashi pulled the phone away from his ear and glared at Hikaru. Go pack your things. He put the phone back. My son Izuku is bleeding because Hikaru decided to use his quirk on him. I see, Miss Sakura said. I'll be over soon to grab him. Do you have proof? We keep a recording device in the living room. We had it installed in case of something like this, Hisashi said as Hikaru slowly left the room, heading over to his room. Good. I can cut the video and email it to you. That's a good idea, Miss Sakura said. I'll be over in 30 minutes. With that, she hung up. Hisashi immediately walked over to Hikaru's room, peeking in through the open door to make sure the kid was packing. Thankfully, he was, but went to grab Izuku's All Might things. Those aren't yours, Hisashi said sharply, walking in and grabbing the blanket and figurines. You put them in here for me, Hikaru snapped. No, Izuku put them in here because he wanted his sibling to like him, Hisashi said. Hikaru huffed, but finished packing quietly. Don't see why you're defending him. He's just a quirkless little freak. He's my son, Hisashi said. The first rule of this house is to not hurt any of us, and that includes Izuku. Applies to him more than anything. Because he's weak and defenseless, face it, he won't survive in the real world, Hikaru said. He'll die, and you'll regret not having me as your kid instead. Keep telling yourself that. You can keep thinking that out of my house, Hisashi said. Izuku should have been asleep a long time ago. Miss Sakura had stopped by and taken Hikaru away, and Izuku had been sent off to bed. He had school tomorrow, after all, although Mom and Dad said that he didn't have to go since he was hurt. He should still be asleep, though. But what if this happened again? What if he needed to defend himself? All Might couldn't come and save him, and he wanted to be a hero. Heroes had to learn to fight, so maybe he could start now. But Mom would be sad if he asked. Dad would always say he would always protect him, but Dad wasn't there today. Dad wasn't there to stop the school bullies either. Slowly, too late for Izuku to be up, he crawled out of bed, locked his door, and logged into the computer, looking up quirkless fighting again. Martial arts studio near him. They probably didn't accept quirkless people. Most wouldn't. Trying to find a way around quirkless discrimination laws so he couldn't attend, plus fees, and that led back to Mom and Dad. The next few links were to HeroTube videos to how-to fighting videos. Izuku opened them. You can do those when he's home alone, not when he's supposed to be asleep. He kept scrolling through the links. What's that? Izuku clicked on the link. It was to a HeroTube video in English, a show that wasn't ancient, but not exactly new either. It was from a show that came out before Izuku's parents were even born, Avatar: The Last Airbender. According to the video, there was a character in it named Ty Lee who aimed for people's nerves to paralyze them? Stop the in-universe version of quirks? Was that even possible in the real world? Izuku looked through the comments on the video, glad that the page was translated into Japanese for him. Something about pressure points, quirk nerves. This was possible in the real world, according to someone. But how? Pressure points and quirk nerves sounded important, so Izuku should probably start there. The second foster kid was nicer than Hikaru was. She didn't use her quirk on Izuku, so Izuku tried to be nice. She didn't go to the same school, but the train station was nearby, and Izuku knew where it was, so he would help her get there. She didn't seem comfortable around him, though. She was gone after 2 weeks when she said something about Izuku's quirklessness being a sickness, so she didn't want to be around him and catch it. It didn't bother Izuku. Really, it didn't, he promises. He's not sick. He knows that. He's just not like the other kids. He spent more time on his computer, using alone time to practice the moves he was learning, looking into pressure points. They were pretty much the same on people, but quirk nerves. If he hit those hard enough, he could turn off someone's quirk. Some people had more prominent ones than others. People who had quirks that worked all over their bodies. Like All Might, his quirk nerves are closer to his skin than Kacchan's. Kacchan has ones closer to his skin around his hands where he activates his quirk, but he still has them everywhere. And Izuku doesn't have any at all, since he's quirkless and all. But Izuku, if he hits hard enough in certain spots, can even use these quirk nerves to paralyze someone's arm or leg or all of them, and no one can do that to him. They can with regular pressure points though, but everyone has regular pressure points. Izuku has an advantage here, so he has to learn how to use this as best as he can. The third foster kid stayed for a month before Mom and Dad found out he was using his quirk on Izuku. Izuku tried to tell him, he really did, but Minato was always there when Izuku wanted to talk to Mom and Dad, making him pretend that everything was alright. Minato's quirk was so cool, too. Minato's quirk was so cool, too. It was called Black Cat, enhancing his speed, flexibility, perception, senses, and gave him claws. As it turned out, he also had really bad luck at times, which was how he got found out. Dad walking in and finding him gripping at Izuku's arm to make him bleed. Minato was brought away fast, and his social worker said that Minato would be in big trouble for everything. On the plus side, Izuku got a phone after that. Mom said if something ever went wrong with one of the kids and they tried to make him stay quiet, to send either of them a fire emoji randomly, and they'd understand and find a way to pull him aside to ask. Easy enough. Plus, he was 7 now. He even got to have a smartphone. Mom made him to promise not to talk to strangers and all, even telling him that he was added onto the unlimited plan, which meant Izuku could watch the martial arts videos outside of the house and practice. It was just a matter of where. One day, after school, Izuku knew his mom would be at her law firm working on a case, and Dad's analyst hours were all over the place, so he could have gone home, but he didn't want to just yet. He needed a place to practice. Izuku hummed as he wandered along, clutching his backpack straps as he looked around. That park was too busy. He could go play on the swings. No, focus. Besides, Kachan's there, and he hasn't noticed him yet. Wait, Kachan, of course. Izuku happily found his way over to the woods they used to play in. Kachan started avoiding them after he fell in the river. And when Kachan avoids it, his friends' lackeys avoid it too. So Izuku will be fine to practice there. So Izuku found his way to the fence, staring at the hole in the fence. It was small enough for him to fit through at 4 years old. But he's 7 now. He's a big boy. He's growing fast, and he's a little too big to fit through that hole in the fence. Could he cut the hole to be bigger? Bend the wires? They were flimsy, and this hole has been here for years. No one really cared about it. Izuku grabbed onto the edge of the fence and tugged. He made the hole big enough, for now, at least, as he kept growing. He'd have to find somewhere else. It didn't matter right now, though. He had a place to practice. Izuku squeezed through the gap and walked along. He had to get far enough so that he could play the videos with the volume on and no one would bother him, but not so far that he'd get lost. He walked about 5 minutes before he found the old creek. It had a clearing on the other side. Perfect. Izuku carefully crossed the river on the log. It was strong, but this place was only temporary. When he got older, he'd have to find somewhere else. Or he could cross through the river water. It felt deep now, but when he got older, it wouldn't be so deep. But the hole in the fence. He can figure it out later. For now, time to get the martial arts thing down. Izuku fell into routine after that. When there was no foster kid after school, he would head to the small forest nearby, finding new videos on his phone at night to practice. He also found this fun thing called parkour. It was usually done on buildings, and underground heroes did it, of course. Izuku couldn't use buildings, but there's an old skate park around here to practice on. He could try that. But there was one thing he was struggling with. He was working really hard on the quirk nerves thing, but he knew on paper that what he should do. He didn't actually know how to do those punches or how much force to put behind it. If he didn't put enough force into it, it wouldn't do anything. And too much force could cause extreme pain, which would help keep him safe. But he didn't want extreme pain, just enough to knock someone's quirk out of commission. So he had to find an in-between point. Routine, right? When there were foster kids over the years, none staying longer than a month, all leaving because of Izuku, Izuku would walk to and from school with them, trying to be friendly, doing his best, at least. He was at first. But the bullies weren't the only ones leaving scars now. Every new scar, scratch, bruise, his mom and dad weren't happy about it. There came a point when, "Hi," Izuku said, smiling at the latest foster boy. at the latest foster kid, a boy his age named Hitoshi Shinso. Izuku didn't hold out his hand, smiling as he sized this boy up. They were both 10 years old, and the other looked tired. "Hi," the boy said, looking Izuku up and down. "Hitoshi, this is Izuku, and Izuku, this is Hitoshi," Mom said, sighing. She was probably already wondering when she would be calling Hitoshi social worker. "Nice to meet you, Hitoshi," Izuku said, then looked at his mom. "Want me to show him around?" "Yes, please," Mom said. "I'm getting started on supper. I'm making udon, if that's all right. That all right with you, Hitoshi?" That sounds good," Hitoshi said. "I'm glad," Mom said, then waved the two off. "Let me know if you need anything, all right?" "Okay, Mom," Izuku said, then turned to Hitoshi. "Your room is over by mine. Do you like All Might?" "I'm more of an Eraserhead fan," Hitoshi said, then paused and sighed. "Right, you probably don't." "Oh, he's so cool," Izuku said. "Oh, he hopes this one turns out to be nice, even if he's one of those kids that pretends for a while before giving up and asking to leave. Underground hero that can turn off your quirk. I've always had a few questions about him. He uses a white scarf that seems more like a support item than anything. His takedown rate is insane, although there's no official report since he's an underground hero, and doesn't exactly advertise that kind of thing. Many villains are afraid of him. Oh, sorry about that. That's a bad habit of mine. Forgive me." "Are you always this talkative?" Hitoshi asked. I try not to be," Izuku said as they rounded a corner. And from experience, Izuku knew that they were far away enough from Mom that she couldn't hear him. "You don't even need to talk to me if you don't want to, but there is something you should know." Hitoshi asked. "Mom and Dad's first rule is that no one gets hurt here. You hurt me, you're immediately gone," Izuku said. "One time the social worker said she'd be here in the morning, so Dad took the other kid to a hotel for the night. It's a nice house, though. You'll always get 3 meals a day. Mom and Dad really want the other kid to love and care for, but if you have boundaries, they respect that. You'll never not be loved here, and your quirk doesn't matter. The three of us don't care. Heroic, so-called villainous, no quirk at all. Be kind, and you'll stick around." "Okay," Hitoshi said, "but there's a catch. There's always a catch." "You don't hurt anyone," Izuku said, "and if I don't like you, Mom and Dad will send you to the next family." "And let me guess, you don't like anyone," Hitoshi said. "No one likes me," Izuku said, glancing at him. "I'm quirkless." Hitoshi instantly tensed at that, and Izuku shrugged, gesturing at his room. "This is your room," Izuku said. "My room has my name plaque on the door when I'm in there. I usually lock my door, and Mom and Dad have a key and come in pretty much whenever they want. But please don't come in my room. They won't go into your room if you don't want them to, and I won't either," he sighed, looking at Hitoshi. "If you decide you want to leave, go ahead. But if you want to stay, at least pretend around them that we get along, and tolerate me when they aren't around. No bruises, cuts, no scars, and please no insults." "That's a very low bar," Hitoshi said. "And if you meet it, you'll be the first I've had foster siblings since I was 6, and I'm 10, Izuku said, then shrugged. "What school do you go to?" "I'm transferring to whichever one you go to," Hitoshi said. "Aldera Elementary," Izuku said, "which means having to deal with me during school hours. I eat lunch alone, don't have any friends, so don't expect my help there." "Wasn't planning on making friends anyway," Hitoshi said. "Huh. Got it. The rooftop is accessible. Then, if you want to eat lunch there, Mom packs his bentos when she can. But she's a lawyer. Dad's a quirk analyst, so hours between the two get weird sometimes. They'll be here all week. Sometimes they'll be here all week. Other times we won't see them all week. Dad also goes on trips from time to time. He was gone for 3 years when I was really little. Mom's occasionally gone too. Not for that long, but it happened. Well, it never happened with a foster kid around, so I doubt you'll be the first." "Got it," Hitoshi said, then stepped into his room. "Mom will call us when dinner's ready," Izuku said as he looked at his phone. As his phone buzzed. He looked at it. "Oh, cool. News notification. Wait, present Mike? That's my cue to head to my room. Let me know if you have any questions. No school tomorrow, so you don't have to worry about that. But when there is school, we'll walk together or something." With that, Izuku turned and walked to his room. This wasn't what Hitoshi was expecting. Either way, he walked into his new room, closing the door and unpacking his things. He didn't have much. What was that? On the desk sat an All Might figurine. Was that why Izuku had asked if he liked All Might? Did Inko or Hisashi leave it here? Did Izuku? Is this a test? Is he supposed to give it back? That sounded like a smart idea. Maybe later, though. For now, Hitoshi took out his phone and started scrolling through an underground hero forum. That's the end of chapter 1. I'll post chapter 2 sometime later. I really like this fic. It's really good. Goodbye.